Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to Encora Global Dev Week 2023. My name is Kim Lantis, Doja Live producer and host, as well as a member of Encora's business development team. My pleasure to be with you as we talk about this session, which is all about cost-effective manners to incorporate dbt on your Synapse pipelines, and more specifically, how to stand up dbt core plus dbt-synapse on Azure, right, or Azure, in cost-effective and ideally, right, this is the keyword here, clean manner. And here to tell us more are Encorians Jose Lopez, a senior data engineer, as well as data analyst Johanna Mendez.
Hey guys,
Hello,
morning,
hello, you too.
afternoon,
So,
evening.
yes. So,
Yeah,
Jose, it's my understanding that you love data integration, visualization,
I do.
visualization. Yes, using modern data stacks, etc. And Joanna, you've been an
Correct.
SQL developer with more than 5 years of experience. And yeah, we're here to learn from you.
Okay.
Before we get started, those of you watching, I'd like to remind you that you can comment, leave your questions here as well. And yeah, so it's a pleasure to learn from both of you. Like I said, let's go ahead and take it away, Jose, Johanna.
Perfect. Perfect.
Thank you.
So yeah, I'm gonna share my screen. Oh, okay, I'm sharing already. Thank you. So so let's start off. Yeah, as as you know, yeah, I'm a data engineer. I'm on. I'm also a data junkie and a proud father and loving husband. I love every fruit ending with berries, raspberries, blueberries, anything you name it, strawberries, right? I love chocolate. I like to work out a little bit. You know, in this industry, you need to stay active. So you, so yeah, because pandemic, yeah, has changed all things for us. So, and I, I challenge you to argue me why the bench mode is not the best band in of all times. Okay, so Joanna, go ahead.
Hello, I am Johanna Mendez. I am data analyst in Encora. I am a cat and dog lover. I have three cats and one dog. One of my hobbies is simply sleeping. And also, really enjoy listening music is one of my favorite things. I love also spending time with my family, and I am a horror movie fanatic.
Okay, cool. So, what is the agenda today? The agenda today is first to describe the problem, right? Quote unquote problem. So, this is what we are calling a bumpy journey to the cloud, right? Next, we are gonna introduce DBT as a solution, right? And then we are gonna propose hopefully a clean and cost-effective solution to incorporate DBT to your current build Synapse pipelines, right? So next, we are gonna have a demo, and of course, it's good to point out what are the next steps on our journey, right? Because this is just starting, so we probably need to improve a little bit, you know, the code, the project, and a few things. Okay, so let's get started. A bumpy journey to the cloud, right? So, okay, if you see all these bullets over here, they are all gonna describe, you know, very known things for you guys, for you data guys, for you classic data warehouse guys, right? So as you know, most of the data warehouse are currently or were currently built based on SQL technologies, right? Like for example SQL Server. So it's natural that all your specialists, all your programmers, all your coders use SQL as a lingua franca, right? It's their area of expertise, right? So in addition to that, they all know their transformation logics, the sources, and so on and so forth. So so the natural step for you is gonna be to incorporate those guys to your current data pipelines build process, right? Now, if we are migrating from on-premises to the cloud, we are, you know, business is always pressured, right? They always demand for quick, you know, wins and use case pulled off. So they are gonna be they are gonna be doing making you just ship quick, right? So as I mentioned here, speed is the name of the game, and since speed is the name of the game, you are probably gonna end up having some serious technical debt. So you need to embrace it, you need to iterate it, you need to own it, right? So now, so if we were migrating, data solutions, and we are so since we probably discover what the new use cases are going to be, you are probably going to end up putting together, building a lot of views, right? And the usual practice is that you build first, and then you get sign off, and then you materialize, build pipelines, right? Because you need to fail fast, right? So in order for you to achieve that, you are gonna probably end up doing building views on top of views, right? So in that case, you at some point you are gonna end up asking yourself, what did this view depend on? What are the objects this view depend on, right? So a couple of a couple of people may tell you, just open Management Studio, right? Right click on dependencies, and you are gonna have the entire list, right? Or maybe some more folks are gonna tell you, that's not very programmatic, right? Why don't we apply some recursive CTs, so we know what the dependencies are? So guess what? You cannot do that, at least on Synapse dedicated pools, which is probably the preferred tool of choice if you are migrating a terabyte scale data warehouse into Azure cloud, right? So in addition to that, we haven't finished with the struggle, right? So usually we developers do deployments, do promotion to higher environments on Friday, right? So on Friday, if we do something called DACPAC, right, and we import our database projects using Visual Studio, right, we are end up we are gonna end up doing into some kind of madness, right? We are gonna end up doing some long sessions for go no go objects, right? And we end up also wondering which object belong to which engineer, right? Because since there are a lot of folks working on the same environment, we don't exactly know which object solves exactly which use case or which Jira ticket, right? So okay, so and not only that, we developers are in this type of situations. We developers are judge, jury, and executioner, right? Because we build, we sign off ourselves, right, and we promote to production. And from time to time, we ask business folks to sign off our things, right? And how do users sign off? Users sign off by consuming reports, by doing a couple of filters, right? But they cannot entirely sign off the entire data, right? So we probably would need to introduce some kind of testing ourselves, right? So, and also some lack of modularity, right? Because for example, as I mentioned, you end up building views on top of views on top of views, and some entangled objects. So you exactly don't have the best scenario for modularity, right? And modularity is not natural on SQL development, right? It's more like general purpose languages, right? So yeah, there is some serious lacking of that. So for that, introducing dbt. Dbt is what, at least for now, or at least as of today, we kind of recognize would be something good to incorporate to our current data pipelines. I'm sorry, to solve a few of these mentioned things, right? So talking about viewception, right? Talking about viewception. So okay, let me try to summarize real quick this. So, okay, yeah. So you are probably gonna solve these viewception things, which is gonna be related to the modularity, right? Introduced by DBT, right? Because DBT allows you to materialize in the process, right? You define modules, right? Know that for dbt, every module is a single SQL statement, right? So you write down some SQL statement that's going to be defined as module, and you have the ability to tell dbt how you want to materialize that module, that module, right? So you can materialize it as tables, as materialized views, or if you prefer some old-fashioned views, and you have some lineage, so you are probably end up having some sort of organization there, right? And also dbt provides you with a good DAC built by itself. Okay, now you can also, for example, organize with this, defining, in traditional data warehouses, you have three main groups of tables, right? Or objects: dimensions, facts, and aggregate, right? So in dbt you can kind of organize those, right, in folders, and then you can nest those folders to the level you need to, right? I don't know, themes, I don't know, calc engines, this subject area, that subject area, so you name it, right? You can do some organization in there. And most important, you have code under control, because yeah, you can you can use git there, you can upload to a code repository, you can do pull requests, you can most importantly know which piece of code belong to which engineer and which Jira ticket it solved, right? And next, you can also introduce some testing, right? There is this nice feature out of the box of dbt where you can define some testing, right? For example, I need this column not to be null. I need this column not to have duplicates, right? And you can also introduce some other excellent thing, in my opinion, which is not covered here, by the way, right? Called great expectations, when you can define like user defined functions, if you will, for doing some ad hoc testing, right? More like, more specific testing on your column. Like, for example, I need this email to have this at sign at this, at this position, or between these two things, and so on and so forth, right? And okay, and now you need to recognize the following: if you have already built some transformations on the synapse side, and you have already some pipelines, some materialization, some views put together, you're gonna need to embrace the rewrite that you are gonna need to rewrite some of the optics, right? Because even though you can take a lot of your current SQL code and put it into dbt and tweak a little bit the modules in models, right? You are probably gonna end up doing some rewriting, right? But that's a good thing, right? Because it gets you a lot of benefits. So I think cost benefits, cost benefit, evaluating, it's worth the effort, right? So okay, and next you can do automation, right? Because of everything I just said, right? So yeah, there are a lot of benefits on introducing dbt to your data projects. Okay, so now what do a classic, a project, a dbt project look like, right? There is this very very important element of a dbt project called dbt underscore project dot YAML, right? This is where you define, for example, where your models are. Remember, models are just plain and simple SQL. Where your tests are, where your seeds, right, and snapshots. We don't exactly go very deep on the concepts of dbt, but that can be covered later, right? But I want you to look at for a second from line 30 onwards, right? So you have models, and you can tell, for example, for the dimensions, I want to materialize those guys as tables, and I want to create them into a dim schema, right? For example, and you can assign particular schemas for your preferred objects, right? For example, for the facts, I need you to create them on a fact schema, right? And even though it is not as simple as just saying this, right? You need to tweak a little bit. You need to introduce something called macros, right, for rewriting the default behavior of the schemas. You can do this. Trust me, I've done it. So next up, talking about schema, right? Schema, for example, you see here that we are defining schema at the fact level, at the fact tables level, right? If you are grouping objects, calling them facts, you can define what those what their sources are going to be, what the source schema is going to be, what the, I don't know, what tests you can define on a particular column, right, and so on and so forth. And take a look for a second to this sources concept, right? Sources concept is something very important, sources and reference, right? Because that's 101 for dbt, because dbt internally defines some dependency tag, right? Some dependency tag, and it will build up all the way from the sources to the final tables, right? And it will kind of make its own execution plan, right, according to the DAC it defined, right? Okay, so now, how do a model look like? It looks like this. For example, in this case, it's a very simple model, I know. It's considering that it's sourcing from trip data, staying data, and also from the conform dimension called the taxon. By the way, this is based on on the famous data set called New York City taxon, right? And since we are talking about, in this case of synapse, we know, right, but that synapse by default, uh, if it creates a table as a cluster column store, right? But you can also define what the distribution is going to be, right? Remember, in synapse you have these 60 nodes, and you distribute the data across all the nodes. So you need to define a key that that allows you to, distribute all the data as evenly enough, right? So yeah, you can do that on dbt. Okay, so now what do we propose? How do we propose to you to introduce dbt, right? So dbt has two flavors, right? Flavors which are dbt core, which is free, and it's going to be free forever and ever, right? But it's usually for, for on premises, and we're on the cloud, right? So we have this other option called dbt cloud, right? But that is not free, so that costs money. So I'm thinking like a customer, right? What if we wanted to introduce dbt to a project, right? We usually, uh, when we are migrating to the cloud, we approach things as POC, right? Evolutionary POCs, if you will, right? So you first do a couple of proof of concepts. You test that this product is an actual fit for your situation, and then you start off with the pain, and making a long-term relationship with the product, right? So in this case, if you are just introducing that, you could you could start like dockerizing the dbt core, right, and putting some spice in there for the ability to connect to synapse, adding something that it's called, not we, is called dbt-synapse, right? This is maintained by the community, and you also need to pack up the dbt project, right? You are gonna pack everything up on a Docker image, right? Now, once it's packed up, you need to upload it to a container registry. And since you are working in Azure, you might not want to upload it to a public container registry, right? You are gonna end up putting your own security, your own policies, roles, access, whatever, right? So you are gonna end up hosting this on your own container registry, right? And that's where you host the images. Now you need to instantiate those guys in order for them to run, right? So you need to deploy them to a container instance, right? And finally, since we are on the assumption that you already have at least a couple of synapse pipelines built, right, you are gonna end up calling that container instance through a REST API call from a web activity available since the beginning of since the beginning of times in data factory synapse pipelines called web activity, right? So now, what you are gonna, you know, the specific command you probably uh, call in some cases could be dbt run, right? But yeah, run has its own drawbacks, right? We probably prefer just call dbt build, right? But the downside of this is that dbt build only calls, right, entire projects, right? So it's up to you how you wanna organize, how you wanna, solve all these entanglements for these big projects, right? I don't know, you might want to create one project for dimensions, maybe one more project for facts, I don't know, it's up to you, right? Okay, so having said that, we also need to care about, basic things like security, like credentials, right? In Docker, we can expose those as environment variables, and once we upload those guys to the container registry and the container instance, those are gonna be also defined as environment variables, right? So when you call those through the API call, you might wanna dynamically define that URL, right? Just for you to, leverage security and dynamicity and so on and so forth, right? So take this in account. This is very perfectible, right? This is not the end solution, but this is something, right? At least it's something that we can call MVP. Okay. Now, summarizing the process, we create the Docker image, we pack dbt core, dbt synapse, and your dbt project. Then you register and deploy. I'm missing deployed here, but yeah, I didn't have room for the word deployment. So we need to register and deploy your image, right, to your container registry and instance, and you finally need to start executing and monitoring this guy. Now, just one thing to point out. I'm only mentioning web, web activity, right? So you need to take in consideration, yeah, what's the first thing we end up doing when we have a production failure? We look at logs, right? So this web activity does not provide us of a lot of logs, right? So you might need to consider uh, a few more transformations, for your Synapse pipelines when you are calling that container instance. Okay. Well, now what do Dockerfile look like? It looks like this, right? This is something that's gonna work, right? We derive it from the Azure CLI. Azure CLI, we enrich it with a few things, right? These things I took from the DBT documentation, right? For the the Microsoft connection components work and be installed correctly. So we also install the connectors. We, of course, we would need to install dbt core, dbt synapse, right? We put them on our requirements .txt, right? And most importantly, we end up executing this dbt build command, which is also going to be executed, and we configure that specific command on the container instance when we deploy, right? Just remember, when you deploy a container instance, for the folks that would like to try dbt run instead of dbt build, just remember you cannot dynamically um, pass parameters to this command, right? You would need to deploy one more time, right, in order to make it, you know dynamic, quote unquote, right? For different, if for those guys that are wondering, what if I needed to to run it for a different date and some other different use case, or I would like just to pass parameters, right? So and putting some more flavor to that, you could just, if you wanted, for example, to run for different dates, you could seed it, right? You could. It's no secret that large data warehouse projects, uh, involve some extra SQL database instance where you have your own metadata tables, right? You can set the particular date there, or you can drive it from some, some file arrivals. Yeah, it's up to you, right? We are only showing the basics here. Okay. So next it's demo. So Johanna, it's up to you.
Okay. So the first step is that we need to build a Docker image. So for
Oh,
that,
wait. I need to start Docker. I haven't started yet.
okay,
Sorry about that. Let's wait just 1 second. Let's wait just 1 second. Docker. Otherwise, we don't wanna. Okay, it's starting.
okay,
Thank you so much for your patience. Okay, it's still starting. It's taking some time. I'm sorry, guys. Okay, perfect. Now we're
okay.
good to go. Thank you.
So we start building the Docker image with that command. We have to wait a couple of minutes to all this finish. It's not take too long, so we only have to wait.
Yep. Yeah, this usually takes like 30 seconds or so. Yeah, you can see 34, 35. Yeah, 35 or so. Okay, that's more than 35. Yeah, I mean,
It's almost finished.
perfect. Thank you.
Good. So now that it's built, we can run it locally, but that's not exactly what we want. We want to upload it to a container registry so we can instance it and therefore we can run it from any orchestrator tool. In this case, Azure Synapse Pipeline. So for the purpose of this demo, we are going to use Azure CLI. Don't get me wrong, in production scenarios, we should be using something like proper CI, CD, Terraform templates, and so on. But luckily, we are not on prod environment, so this serves nicely on our purpose. So first, we need to log into Azure, so we use this command.
Yep.
Yes, we have to use our account. Okay, now since we are logged into Azure, we need to also log in into our container registry previously created using that command. In this case, we have created a registry called Synapse DBT POC. Taking consideration the service costs almost a dime and 1 hour on the billing. Okay, now we tag our image and we're picking the file tag. So we use that command to do that.
Mhm.
And finally, we uploaded it to the registry like this. We have to push. And then if we want to verify everything a lot correctly, we will need to go to the actual container registry service. So we go to the service, we navigate to our container, and as we search for the repositories, um, we pick ours, and there you go, there is version 5. Next, we deploy this to a container instance. So we go to the service, we pick the one we just created. Taking consideration one more time for the purpose of this presentation, we have done everything using Azure CLI. Again, we don't recommend this for production environments. We search for the instance, and then will you notice that this has a stopped status by default. We can run it from here, but that's not what we want, right? So we want this to run from an actual pipeline. So for that, we go to Azure Synapse Workspace. Go to the service. We search for our pipeline. You can see over there that there is already a build pipeline, including a web activity already configured. Take in consideration that the URL should be dynamically built or parameterized, like that. Okay, now let's run it. Okay, it's in progress. We have to wait till it's finished. It's not take too much. In few will it finish.
Mhm.
There you go. So as a final step for verification, we select a table from our database. Let's pick up our fat trip patterns. For example, we use a select. And there you go, we have data. So that proves that our implementation was successfully implemented.
Perfect. Thank you. So yeah, one more time. We are only showing the basics, right? This would, if you wanna classify this kind of workload as something, right? You would probably classify this as a backfill, right? As a historical load, right? So okay, yeah, you could parameterize this, but it's up to you. Okay. So now, next steps, right? Next steps. So as I said, there is a lot of improvement here, right? For example, Docker, right? Some hardcore developers would tell me, okay, but what about the vulnerabilities, right? We need to solve those. We're aware of that, don't worry. So we probably, in order for us to enable the ability to do, ad hoc running for particular dates, if we don't want to see it, or maybe if we do, right? We are maybe in the need of adding third-party libraries, right? There are a lot of libraries over there maintained by the community, right? There is this nice features of dbt called snapshots, right? And the typical use case would be for type 2 dimensions, right? For historical dimensions. Of course, as I mentioned, we need to make facts and aggregates to refresh incrementally. Sorry about that. And yeah, in order for us, we have only showed you the happy path and the basic security configuration, right? We need to, in an actual production environment, we need to apply least privilege, right? With the proper roles, with the proper privilege, with everything you need to implement, right? For that, you maybe wanna talk to cloud engineering team if you have it, or if not, just read the documentation. It's all there. Perfect. So, okay. So yeah, one thing that concern some folks is, okay, I'm outsourcing the creation of my tables to dbt. So is that gonna be performant? Yeah, I mean, it should be, right? It should be, because you can configure and you can put some directives in there, right? But it's good to test. It's good to test. It's good to have proof of those assumptions, right? Okay, now of course we are engineers. We love CI/CD, right? We love to automate things, right? And everything else you need to improve. So thank you. That's all. Okay.
Here we are.
Mhm.
That's
Okay.
great. Thank you. What a great session, you two. Really appreciate it. I personally enjoyed how you didn't really sugarcoat over the troubles and the troubleshooting that you might have, and of course touched on next steps as well. I really like the demo for visual learners like myself. Now, I'm not a programmer, like not even close by any stretch of the imagination. I do feel that you covered the how really well. I mean, you did touch on this being the very happy path, right? But can I ask more about the why? Perhaps can you share some real life examples of how on a project you've worked with, how incorporating or implementing DBT has benefited? What's some of your experience on that side?
Right. It has benefit a lot in the terms of, for example, again, Friday deployment sessions, right? Because that's painful. That's painful in the sense that you just put together some sessions on Friday just to decide which piece of code it's going to be deployed or not, right? And who's responsible for that, right? So for that, you kind of already have what we call pull request, right? And CI/CD flows, right? So in pull request, you have two instances of approvals, right? And then you can actually know which piece of code is it's going to be production ready, right? Or maybe ready for higher environments, right? Also, there are some other great experiences from a couple of friends of mine in a couple of big clients who have actually applied this thing called great expectations, right? Great expectations, it's something you can add to your dbt projects, right? It's some third party libraries, and that can help you a lot to define some very granular user defined functions, right? Like the ones I mentioned. For example, if you wanted this column to be in the range of, I don't know, just positive values, not negative ones, right? You could write that type of testing, right? And other than that, yeah, the best benefit of all is that you can organize your code and you can make it look clean, right? So that's some big gains. That's some big advantage. Sorry, not gains. Yeah.
Johanna, did he miss anything or did he cover it all? Oh, I think you're muted. Sorry.
Sorry.
Happens to the
Yes.
best of us.
Yeah, sorry. Well, I know have experience using DVDs, but I almost work with database projects. And as Jose said, this project helps a lot to have the code organized. That we can select what kind of object go to prod, and don't try to have object that doesn't have value for the business, something like that, right?
Perfect. Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure learning from the both of you. To those of you watching, again, let us know in the comments what you enjoyed most, what you learned. And if you have any questions about what might be missing, pop that in there too, because I'm sure Jose and Yona will be happy to answer that. And yes, again, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Jose, Yona, for spending your time with us. And it's our hope that you'll join us again here on Encora Dev Week. Check out all the upcoming sessions on our website, the official website, devweek.encora.com. You can check out past sessions there as well. And of course, you can check us out on our socials as well. Or simply stick around because our next session is pretty much coming up right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.